is from Khokhar Consulting, and he will be discussing today going vertical is the new normal, how brands, factories, and retail lead the post-COVID economy. A very rare topic for this time. Very excited to see what you have to say. Remind everybody that we do have a chat function, so as questions arise throughout Sal's presentation, please feel free to include them there, and we will address them at the very end. Without further ado, Sal, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Jason. And thanks ATS again for putting up a great show and putting together a great group of speakers and panelists over the last couple of days to come and talk about the challenges and opportunities that the current climate at retail and sourcing and manufacturing offer. My topic today is going to be, as Jason mentioned, going vertical and the new normal of how we need to think about collaborations, partnership, and direct-to-consumer strategy. I will a small presentation that I'll share during the course of our discussion. But what I wanted to, in general, talk about is 2 or 3 main things. The message is everyone has understood the challenges and weaknesses within the retail supply chain. We understand that there isn't enough margin in there for every business model and company involved to remain profitable. And the one thing that hasn't changed is the customer is still king. And more so than ever, because customers are shopping online in percentages that we've never seen. In the last 8 months, the growth online has exceeded all expectations from a comparable to a percentage of sales at brick and mortar. This phenomena, though expedited by the current climate of COVID, was expected. However, not at the hockey stick scale of spiking the way we've seen it in recent years. What this has offered specifically brands that traditionally were not comfortable with going online is the understanding that if we create the infrastructure, if we create the collateral, if we create the websites, the imagery, the content, the engagement, all of those things will eventually lead us to connect with the end consumer, where all of the problems related to margins go away. Well, not all of them, because we still have high levels of returns. Let me speak a little bit about my background, and then from that point, I'll talk about where we are today. My background primarily is I started over 20 years ago at Calvin Klein, primarily dealing with wholesale sales and driving international distribution for Calvin Klein jeans, underwear, and juniors. We opened a London, we rolled it into Europe, signed distributors in every major market, and grew the business. The beauty at the time was we were working with a brand that had amazing marketing potential. The era of Mark Wahlberg and Kendall Jenner being the face of the campaign, Kate Moss, all of these celebrity level models and personalities that became the face of the campaigns connected with a age demographic universally. So when we took in a Kate Moss campaign into Europe, it was immediately recognized with. And 10 years later, when the Kendall Jenner campaign or Justin Bieber campaign launched in Europe, it was immediately recognized by the same young customer. When you can connect directly with the customer, the job of the distributor becomes much easier. Where we are today is brands understand that when they're creating something, it's not just for a local market. You perfect it locally, but then you must think about taking it globally. As you take it globally, you must deal with the challenges and the potential. You can't just think about, I'm going to do a ton of business in the United States once I get there. You have to think about what are the steps that I need to take to get there. So let's talk about those. So Calvin was my first international distribution, franchising, and sales position in the industry. I moved over to Donna, Karan. I ran shoes and bags for a little while, and then from their international and licensing. And again, with DKNY, signing eyewear deals with Marchand, watches with Fossil and Movado, fragrances with Estee Lauder, primarily the idea was to take a brand, sign multiple licensing deals in new categories, which raises the profile of the brand, and then open franchise stores, which would roll out worldwide through strategic partnerships. We built the brand to close to 1.2 billion and sold it to LVMH, at which point I started my firm, which primarily focuses on US brands into international markets and taking American partnerships, strategic partnerships between manufacturers in China, in India, and South America that are looking to either license a brand, buy a brand, or create a brand. That strategy has never been more relevant today. This leads us to the conversation today about going vertical. What does that mean? Essentially, what that means is if you're a distributor, if you're a brand in New York, your challenges are you've built the name, you've built the name recognition, and you have distribution. But your prices are probably a challenge because you're working with a manufacturer in Asia or in South Asia or in Latin America or in Europe, and they need to make their margins and you need to make your margins. Seamless integration of these two verticals is where the industry is headed. So if you make a garment, if a factory makes a garment for $20 and sells it to the brand for $40, the retailer then requires a 2.5%, 2.5 markup. So you're already at $100. At that point, you're selling it at retail at $200. So something that was $20 is now in the $100 to $150 range. At 30 off, now it comes back to $100. So our challenge is, if that factory at $20 marked it up to $40 and gave the value to the customer, this is where you come up with the phenomena of an H&M or a Zara on a Uniqlo, on brands and companies that have chosen to go vertical over the last 15 years. So why is it so difficult for factories or brands or even retailers to recognize that the three of them could collaborate to create a singular, seamless supply chain that would help each of them reach the end consumer? Brands are great at marketing and designing. Retailers are great at customer service and reaching the end consumer. And finally, manufacturers are great at bringing the designs to life, creating that fabric, finding the trim, getting the product to market in a timely manner. These are three completely different skill sets, but all three of them have to work together seamlessly. Today, the big thought process is collaborations. So whereas designers are thinking of collaborating with celebrities and influencers to reach a larger audience, manufacturers are thinking of collaborating directly with retailers to create private label brands so they can go directly to the end consumer. Somewhere in here, the designers are the challenge, because retailers may have a trend, but they may not have the end solution of reaching the audience. I think what I will do is I will share a little bit about the business model that we're talking about through a presentation, and I will cut back to our screen shortly. Let's take a look at, let me see if I can seamlessly share my screen. And here we are. So hopefully everyone can see this clearly. And so the message that I always start with is opportunity is missed the most by people because it's dressed in overalls and look like work. When opportunity knocks on our door, just because we don't understand it, just because it's complicated, does not mean we should not address it. We have to look at it, especially in a climate like today's, we have to think about what's available to us. The fashion world has changed more in the last 6-8 months than in the last 10 years. Today, what we're looking at is CEOs and owners of manufacturing entities must have a global vision, have a passion for their products, consciousness of the greater good, and an understanding of technology to connect with the next generation of consumers. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and when it's time to be, it's time to selectively forget the past, manage the present, and create the future. The current landscape is that every major brand today has saturated the market via online department stores, boutiques, and influencers. If you go into a mall in Shanghai or Dubai or Mexico, 80% of the brands will be identical. This is where there is an opportunity to create newness. There's a lack of newness, and the younger consumer does not connect with the brands from the last 20 years as today's consumer does. The problem today is that department stores do not want to take a risk. Even online platforms, everyone from Farfetch to Moda Operandi to Net-a-Porter to Essence, and some of the best online platforms out there do not want to take a risk with young designers, primarily because they can't deliver on the margins. They don't know if they'll deliver on time. Hence, those designers are the ones that are in most need of partnerships with the manufacturing companies that can provide that infrastructure and support. The opportunity is that since retail has all but abdicated the responsibility to introduce young talent to markets, and just, historically, Barney's shuttered in 2019, Neiman's filed bankruptcy this year. They're in the middle of restructuring, and let's see how that turns out. This opens up an opportunity to disrupt the status quo of old brands, boring shopping experiences, to create a new platform utilizing Gen Z technology and featuring curated international talent for a younger audience. And when I say next gen technology, the technology exists. It's about our industry's ability to use it. It's everything from AI to virtual reality to 3D rendering, body mapping for fitting, CGI influencers, and mobile inventory connectivity. Simply revolutionize online experience. So there's the first step. If you're not online, get online. If you're online and you've been there for several years, update. There's technology available for all of us to access and take our user experience to the next stage. The thought process is, when you are creating a brand or a brand partnership, what are the 2 or 3 key necessities that one needs to think about? First thing to think about is, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? If I am a manufacturer, I need design and marketing. If I am a designer, I need manufacturing, marketing, and online. If I'm an online platform, I need designers and manufacturing. At the end of the day, it's all essentially 3 to 4 things. There's the back end and there's the front end. The 360 front end solution essentially is working with manufacturers to create a wholesale operation as you drive consumer awareness to launch an online direct-to-consumer operation. In between that is marketing and PR and tech and innovation. The power of one is something that we've been talking about, where an ecosystem exists, where it's shared services, talent, and a vast network of streamlined execution at 50% the cost if one person tried to do it alone. If we can create an ecosystem of factories and brands working together to bring product to the consumer, the value to the consumer is what will drive traffic to the site, which is the ultimate hurdle for every new brand launching. We drive traffic to the site, the manufacturer's issues of low minimums go away. The traffic goes away. The issue of deliveries can be on every 30-day basis as opposed to every 6 months. Let's discuss the vertical model. Focus on offering crucial services under one umbrella. And by providing this ecosystem of capabilities that are in the front end service driven, on the back end service driven, and on the front end retail division, we solve the problems for both brands and manufacturers. Our objective today with this project is to nurture the next generation of creative entrepreneurs. They can be creative entrepreneurs at the manufacturer level, at the brand level, at the marketing level, or at the retail level. And when I say retail, I am speaking online. Brick and mortar isn't dead, but boring brick and mortar is dead. We looked at over 800 companies in the last 18 months to narrow down our freshman group of designers. Not startups, not students, but rather seasoned professionals with backgrounds at the top brands in the world. Armed with factory relationships on the back end, with celebrity friends on the front end. So influencer marketing isn't going away anytime soon. It's just how sophisticated and organic that influencer marketing is what becomes important moving forward. If brands are doing around $1 million in sales, or factories are doing around $5 million in sales, there's no better business model for them to take on than a direct-to-consumer model. But a direct-to-consumer model alone can be very scary. There has to be a brand manufacturer partnership, or a manufacturer distributor partnership, or a brand distributor partnership. These combine CEOs and creative directors and sourcing managers must create a triad which helps them go to the next stage. These are some of the young designers that we're looking at to scale them to the next level. This is a little bit about our team. Essentially the go-to team, solving problems in crunch time. So let's think about the process and the steps of creating a brand. If we have a product, the idea is, how do we shoot it and enhance the imagery, create a movie, and get it online for millions to see it? A lookbook used to be sufficient to get buyers' attentions, but today, even buyers at the top retail stores discover brands on Instagram. And if they're discovering them on Instagram, it's the image that must capture them first and foremost. So this was the ad campaign I was talking about earlier. The power of a campaign that was so strong 20 years ago that it can be repeated 20 years later with two completely different individuals, yet had the same end result. From that point, it's all about trade shows, market weeks, sourcing, whatever we want to call it post-COVID. The relationship between brand and buyer is one that continues to be managed. How it will be managed may change, but that is the ultimate relationship, because buyer's job is to discover new talent, to get consumers excited about coming into their retail platforms. So whether you are getting into a multi-brand boutique, a department store, or your market entry strategy is to own your own franchise, any of those markets work. Any of those ways work, but you still need to sell your brand. There's a pre-show, there's the show, and then ultimately the events. These are some of the best shows out there, which we can talk about worldwide. Licensing is one of the quickest ways to take your manufacturing partnership to the next level with a brand, or for a brand to take their recognition to the next level with a celebrity, or for a celebrity to launch a clothing line through a partnership with a brand. One of the ones that we've highlighted here recently is Kanye West getting 114 million in royalties from Yeezy, which basically means that Adidas must be doing around $1 billion in sales with just that collaboration. So this is a win-win scenario for the celebrity, for the brand, but ultimately for the end consumer that's a fan of both. traditionally, a brand launch usually is based upon a category expertise. So if a manufacturer is an expert in shoes, you don't want to launch your brand in ready to wear. Or if you're an expert in denim, you don't want to launch in dresses. You want to launch in denim and you want to sign a license in dresses. You want to launch your manufacturing capability brand in shoes and sign a license in handbags. The more product you try to do yourself, the more you have to develop expertise in that product design and manufacturing. And the harder it is to build those relationships in each of those category verticals with the retailers and buyers. My comment earlier about retail is not dying. It's mediocre retail that is dying. Post the economic downturn of 2020, when we look at what comes out of the ashes is really innovation. It's going to be a true engagement-driven retail experience that the majors are looking at, as well as the new concept stores. And it was already headed in that direction, but today it's been expedited. So this is an exciting time more than ever of what's to come at retail. Malls are not going to go away. Consumers going out and shopping is not going to go away. It's how they shop, what their expectations are, both from the experience, as well as the service, as well as the ability to combine online and brick and mortar. These are some of the ideas of where we see it heading, everything from category extensions to technology to experiences to be able to customize materials, so on and so forth. Brick and mortar retail rakes in 87% of shopping dollars in the US. Online makes up 13% of the pie. This number has changed significantly from the beginning of 2020 to today, and it'll continue to change. But even then, if you think about the beginning of 2020, with all of the talk of online, one would not imagine that retail was 87% of the business. Ways to get into retail, everything from distribution and a partnership with a department store, or a direct relationship with a mall where you can sign a franchise with an operator. Runways and installations. Paris Fashion Week just executed not even 3 weeks ago. They were able to go back and execute live shows with safety measures. However, I think as we move forward, there are ways to still provide the experience without worrying about not being accessible to a broader global audience. That's where everything from Ralph Lauren usage of 4D green screen, Burberry's usage of 3D mapping, Selfridges and Harrods using holograms outdoor, everyone from Dior to Saint Laurent doing virtual reality, is where the industry is heading slowly but surely. But these are big names that can afford this technology. We need to start thinking of how do designers and manufacturers integrate this technology into the best fashion weeks around the world. The global luxury market is expected to increase from 314 billion to 341 billion in 2022. The online platform, if we look at the combination of a couple of the bigger platforms out there, YNAP had 2 billion in sales with 10% of the market share. It took them 20 years and 3 buyouts. Today, they are one of the largest online platforms for luxury brands worldwide. But what they're still not utilizing, what a new company can utilize, is new tech, ethical sourcing, blockchain transparency, vertical supply chain, direct-to-consumer marketplace that is transparent and speaking to the desires and needs and demands of today's consumer. Something as simple as imagine going online, finding a dress, clicking and seeing yourself, a picture of yourself wearing the dress. Swipe and see how you look from the back. Click and share the picture with a group of friends. Get their opinions. See what celebs wore it better. See the designer's inspiration and make the seamless purchase. But imagine that this happened in a trying room at the store. It can happen just as well there as it can happen sitting at home shopping online. 3D body avatars already exist, which allow for perfect fitting by designer, by brand. How technology can revolutionize online shopping is where the near future is headed, creating personalized and immersive consumer journeys. Finally, an influencer's world, but how is influencer changing? Lil Michaela, a computer-generated image created by robotics firms in Palo Alto, has 1 million verified Instagram followers, and she does not exist. Our goal essentially is to create this experience. Let me wrap this up. And this is just a little bit about us, the brands that we've worked with, and the brands that we've launched between the US into Europe and from Europe into the US. Calvin, as I mentioned, was my first experience, which is tremendous. DKNY, work with everyone from Earl Jeans to Giambattista Valli to young designers that you may not know the names of. So let's, what I will do is speak a little bit more generally and take any questions that might exist. The thought process, the messaging here that I'd like to leave us with is, how do we create collaborations? How do we create joint ventures? How do we help manufacturers, brands, and retailers help themselves? If you're a manufacturer today, the number of cancellations caused because of the pandemic, especially in countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, China recovered faster than these countries have this status quarter. You divert so orders need exist. Losing cancel threat to bring designers on board to create a local brand, perfected in the local market. As you perfect it in the local market, grow regionally, go into the neighboring countries. As you perfect that, find strategic partners in the US and Europe to launch your brand. As you launch that brand, what you will have done is you will already have improved your trend research, your presentation to your existing suppliers, your private label potential with existing retail partnerships. And of course, now you can have a discussion with a much larger brand to talk about, how do we structure a licensing deal? You're a great handbag brand. We are an expert outerwear manufacturer. Allow us to become your outerwear license. That's one step up from your local brand. A further step up is work with a private equity fund or an investment bank. Look at a brand that is undervalued in the United States or in Europe and make the investment as a strategic partner that is the manufacturer on the back end. These are key business models. Either create a brand, license a brand, or buy a brand. This is the fastest way to get to the end consumer, which allows you higher margins, long-term stability in your business, and alleviates the threat of 1 or 2 cancellations of production orders, threatening your revenues and your business model in a lethal way. Hopefully, this was a general message, a general idea, a thought process that some have executed very well. More and more industries are looking at it. And the goal is for small and medium enterprises that were hurt the most to think about going vertical, becoming the new normal. I will wrap here. If there are any questions, Jason, please let me know and we'll take it from there.
Great, thank you, Sal. Very thorough and well articulated as always. All right, I'm gonna check on our Facebook group to see if any questions have come in. Don't see any at the moment. Give me 1 second. I would like to remind everybody that we do have to visit the exhibitor hall afterwards. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a little link there as well. Sal, any closing remarks while I'm looking here for our Facebook participants?
I think we can wrap if there are no questions. The company, I can basically share with you the project that we're speaking about is called Collective Moda, collective with a K, and it's collective.moda, which is the online platform where one can look at manufacturers and brands can look at how we are integrating and combining and creating synergies between the two industries to help them collaborate together.
Okay, fantastic. Looks like we don't have any questions. That means you've done your job very well, Sal. Thank you again. One last thing I'd like to say to everybody watching is I'd highly encourage everybody at some point to visit our Zoom room. And it's kind of taking the place of the show floor this year since we're doing it digitally. We have our speakers, our partners, and some of our administrative staff and matchmaking personnel from ATS jumping in and out of there. So it's a great place to network virtually. So I highly encourage, the link is in the chat box there. So Sal, thank you so much again. And hopefully I get to see you in person next year.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Yep.